Hi, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Holly and this video is long overdue. This was supposed to be done for Memorial Day weekend and surprise, surprise, life got in the way and it just did not get done. So I'm posting it now. I think this cup is worth sharing. It turned out super cute and it actually is not difficult to make. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with a white spray painted tumbler. Of course, I've sanded it and prepped it with isopropyl alcohol to clean off any residue. Then just base painted the tumbler with a flat white spray paint. And I am using a fast setting epoxy to apply this glitter additive. This is like a really fluffy, it's not mica, but it's not like a fine glitter. It's sort of a fluffy glitter additive. It's called Touch of Gold and it's Pretty Personal. I really like this additive in epoxy a lot. My epoxy had been sitting for a while. Like I said, it's fast setting, and so it started to heat up and not spread as smoothly as I wanted it to. So when I applied the Touch of Gold into the epoxy and applied it to the tumbler, I really had a hard time using my gloved hand to evenly spread it all over without messing with it too much. So what I wound up doing over the top of the Touch of Gold added into the epoxy and spreading that over the tumbler is I used it. That's a new word for you. I used Maestra Creations Superstar Glitter, which was the perfect glitter for this Memorial Day or Patriotic tumbler. It has like these little bursts of glitter pieces that almost look like fireworks or stars. And so I'll show you a close-up of this when it's on the turner, but it just looked so pretty. So I'm glad that I added that. So I added the glitter and then I just let it sit overnight. And here's what it looks like on the turner. My lighting is horrible, but here's what it looks like. Once the light hits the glitter, you can really see those little pieces that kind of look like fireworks, just really pretty. So then after it cured, I put one more coat of epoxy over the top of it and also a fast setting. So I used the fast setting epoxy to apply the glitter, and then I used the fast setting epoxy after that glitter application had cured. And now I am ready to dip it into a bucket of, it's kind of like lukewarm water. I just turn on my hot and my cold faucets at the same time until it fills up. And then I put a garbage sack in the bucket for a liner for easy cleanup. Spray painted those colors. I started with white, sprayed the red and the blue. My red was looking kind of orangey, so I had to run into my craft room to grab another color red. So I'm going to come back out and spray the darker red over the top of kind of the orangey color red. And I'll make sure that I post all the colors that I used in the description box below. So I just went like white, blue, red, and then the other dark red, and then blue again, and then finish with white. I like to start with the color that's closest to my base color and then end with the color. I don't know if that's necessary. That's just how I typically do it. And then I dip my cup in, and as I dip, I turn all at the same time and then give it a little swish at the bottom and then pull it out, and this is what you get. So your pattern is always different. And then you can either leave it as is, or I tend to just mess with my tumblers sometimes too much. But what I like to do to make sure that I get that white glitter on the white based glitter portion to really be crisp and bright and sparkly is I like to take acetone or like a 90% rubbing alcohol and start cleaning up any areas that I thought maybe the color looked kind of weird. Like I feel like this big area right there, the big swooshy area, has too much orangey from that weird orange spray paint color that I put in the bucket first. So I'll start from one direction of the tumbler, spritz my cloth with rubbing alcohol, a spray bottle, or I will take my acetone and just dab a little bit of acetone on my paper towel, and I just start rubbing in one direction. If you rub back and forth, you kind of pick up that spray paint and it smears back the other direction, and that's just kind of annoying, and then it just takes extra elbow grease to get that off. So I just go one direction. I kind of follow the swooshy lines, try not to think about it too much, and just I'll lift as I move my hand down the tumbler. I'll kind of lift up at the end, so the line that I'm cleaning off isn't so drastic. It's more of a gradual release of color, or a gradual cleanup of color, I guess. And I'll just do that in the same motion, the same pattern as the spray paint is moving, trying to sort of mimic those lines until I like the sparkle that's coming through and I feel like it has nice movement throughout the tumbler. So you just keep doing that. At the very end, I'll clean up with rubbing alcohol. So even if I have acetone, I'll finish up with rubbing alcohol, because rubbing alcohol takes off the little pieces of residue without accidentally removing like a big chunk that you actually did want to stay on your cup. So just keep doing that until you like it. And then once you're happy with the way it looks, just let it sit until that acetone and the rubbing alcohol and the spray paint is completely dry. And then I always like to seal it with a clear gloss spray paint first before I put my epoxy on, because sometimes the epoxy will repel off the spray paint if you don't let it sit for 24 hours. And I did not let this one sit for 24 hours. So I sprayed it with a clear gloss spray paint first before I applied another layer of epoxy over the top. And then this one, because it has the dark spray paint on it, I didn't want to take a chance on fast setting epoxy, possibly showing too many like bubbles, micro bubbles. So I used just a regular Artist Cure epoxy over the top, and that was I'll list it in the link below, or in the description box below. That's Jessica Flynn's Artist Cure epoxy. Sorry, I do not have a link for her, but it is good epoxy, so I would recommend. And then what I did is I printed out some water slides, and this is probably the part of this project that took the longest, honest to goodness, because my printer and my internet connection decided that they were not going to communicate with one another, and it took me like 6 hours to troubleshoot, going upstairs and downstairs, upstairs, downstairs, disconnecting, reconnecting, rebooting, everything with my little routers that I use for my internet connections. So finally, these adorable little Highland cows printed for me. So these are printed on a clear Waterslide paper. I have an inkjet printer, and so these are clear inkjet Waterslide papers. So I just printed 2 images on the same piece of paper so I wouldn't waste too much, and then I spray sealed it with a clear spray paint that I was almost out of. It's the 2x Rustoleum Clear Gloss. I had barely enough to spray paint, and then I had to jump on Amazon and order some more. So thank goodness these ones turned out. And then what you do is you just cut out around, so you fussy cut or whatever you want to call it, bubble cut if you're a teacher. You bubble cut around your image, and then you just dip it in some slightly warm, not hot, not cold, a little warmer than lukewarm water. And I let that sit until the image releases from the paper backing. And then I just slide it right into position on my tumbler wherever I want it. Now this is clear, so the spray paint is going to shine through. So that's why I took off more in that one section of spray paint than I did any other area around the tumbler. I wanted a bigger portion to be clear. Otherwise, it would just go right through the cow image. So this one little red piece of spray paint you're going to see goes right up through the nose of the cow, but it still looks really cute. So what I'm doing here is I've already slid my image onto my tumbler, and I'm taking that little silicone, it's like a makeup applicator. If you have, if you apply a mask to your face or whatever, that's what that is. And so I'm just making sure that it's very wet. The image has to be very wet. I have to keep dipping that silicone applicator into the water to make sure it's wet. Otherwise, if you're, I'm just gently gliding that applicator over the water slide to get out any wrinkles and bubbles. If your water slide does not stay wet, it starts to sort of buckle in areas, or it will pull apart like it looks like it's cracking. And so that's why I keep dipping in my hand and getting it wet, dipping the silicone applicator. I want to make sure that's really super soaked. So I just keep repeating the same process until all the edges are smooth. There aren't any little bubbles or buckles or anything inside or on that water slide. So after I'm done, I'm just going to take a paper towel and just barely, very gently tap with a paper towel to make sure the excess moisture is out of there. And so now I'm going to apply some stars. Now, I kind of think now, after I applied the stars and applied the epoxy on top of it, I think maybe I liked the tumbler better before I decided to do a swirl of stars. I mean, the stars are cute, but it kind of, I feel like the stars in the end kind of took away from the hydro dipped spray painted appearance, and it draws your eyes more toward the stars than it does the paint swirls. But it's okay. Maybe I'll make another one without the stars. So what I wanted to do is do like a swirl of stars starting from the very top and going all top front, going all the way around diagonally through the back, and then wrapping back around the front bottom. So it's almost like the stars are going to sort of swirl around that Highland cow. And so I just printed off red, white, and blue stars, and I'm going to randomly place them following the colors of the spray paint. So if I get to the back side and I'm going at a diagonal and I'm going across mainly blue spray paint section, then I'm going to apply mostly blue stars in that area and scattering into the next color like red and silver. So I'm going to fast forward or just skip and then show you what that looks like around the other side. Okay, so here we are around the back side, and I have like a little buckling in that water slide that keeps, I accidentally pulled on it with the transfer tape, of course, because I had to apply the stars without putting a layer of epoxy on. And so I tugged on that water slide on the corner there, and now I have a little bit of an issue that I'm going to try to fix in a little bit. But you can see where I'm trying to sort of follow the line of the spray paint color. And so I've put red stars over the top of the red spray paint. And then down here, there's a little bit of blue. And then I'm applying blue stars to that area. So I just continue in that fashion all the way around, and then I decide later that those silver stars are a little bit too bulky right there, and so I take some of those off, and then I put some smaller ones on, and then I just remove some of the bulk from some of the blue stars, and I just work my way around the tumbler, adding stars and getting rid of stars just at random. Because it's like, in this case, more was not better. Less is more. So once I have the stars where I want them, now I'm really poking around that flag because it's really bothering me that the edge of that water slide got lifted with my transfer tape. So of course I am poking until, of course, I'm going to poke just a little bit too much and pull up some of the ink off of the corner of the flag. So I decide, my water slide is already dry. Gosh, I better add some water to it so I can flatten out that little rumple that's in there. And then when I added the water to it, it made it a little bit sticky and stuck to my finger a little bit, and then the ink lifted off the corner of the flag. So then I'm like, I better repair that. I'm going to have to paint over the top of it, or, I know. I have a marker, a fine tip marker that I can use. Luckily it worked. So I had a blue marker that matched very closely the color of the really dark navy blue that was around the corner of that flag. And so I just touched it up just enough. Now, if I would have messed up, I would have had a real issue because then I would have to take it off with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and that would have messed up the flag even more. So I got lucky. I fixed it with the fine point marker, the fine tip marker, let it sit for a little bit, spray painted everything a couple times with Rustoleum Clear Gloss. No, I did not. It was not Rustoleum because remember I ran out because I had to use it for my water slide. So I used, what's it called? It is called Camar Varnish. My dog is biting his toenails. So wow, that's weird. If you have dogs, please leave a comment. Let me know if your dogs bite their toenails. Never had a dog bite their toenails before. Very, very, very strange dog thing to do. So here it is after I have sprayed it with Camar Varnish, and I am putting a coat of epoxy over the top. Now, I know that I struggle. I'm sure not everybody struggles, but I struggle when I have really shiny vinyl, like foil vinyl. My epoxy, I really just have a hard time getting the bubbles not to show in my epoxy over the top of the really shiny foil vinyls. So what I did is I spread the epoxy on. It went on very smoothly. Everything was all good. It was all leveled out. And then I just really hit those star areas with that torch way too much. And what happened is it created fish eyes right over the top of some of those stars. So this is coat number 1 over the top of the water slide and the stars. And this is coat number 2 after I let the first coat sit for the full 24 hours. So I didn't sand or anything in between these 2 coats. I was afraid to sand because some of the fish eyes that developed exposed a portion of or edges of the water slide, as well as some of those vinyl stars underneath. And I was worried if I sanded it, it was going to pull it up even more or actually scrape marks, like give my little stars a little abrasion. So I didn't want to do any of that. So I just applied the second coat of epoxy right over the top. And what I'm doing is just holding it. I'm applying the epoxy directly underneath my lamp because I had really poor lighting in where my epoxy station because my really good lights, the bulbs went out, and so I'm using some backup lights and they don't work as well. So I'm holding this right underneath my lamp to apply the epoxy, and then as soon as it's on, I'm going to rush it back over to the turner, and then I'm just going to very, very lightly hit it with a torch this time. I'm not going to hover that torch over those stars. And here is the final result. It turned out really cute, even with the ring of stars that I think maybe takes away from the paint, the hydro dip a little bit, even with the red going up the cow's nose and the extra layer of epoxy. This cup is just so dang cute. So I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And thank you so much for watching. Please leave any questions or comments below.